We spend so much of our lives waiting for the right moment, the right sign, the right green light that tells us it's safe to finally move forward. It's almost like we're programmed to believe that success is something we're granted, not something we seize. That if we just sit still long enough, someone will notice us, someone will open the door, someone will say, "Okay, now you're ready." But here's the reality: nobody is coming to hand you that kind of permission. Nobody is watching you the way you think they are. The harsh truth is that most people are too consumed with their own doubts and distractions to stop and grant you validation. And if you keep waiting for it, you'll wait your whole damn life. The reason this is so dangerous is because waiting masquerades as patience. You convince yourself that you're being wise, that you're biding your time, that you're just preparing. But if you're honest, you're hiding. Preparation is useful up until the moment it becomes avoidance. At some point, "I'm not ready yet" stops being the truth and starts being an excuse. And the tragedy is, while you're waiting for certainty, someone with half your potential but twice your audacity is already out there taking action. They're getting the opportunities you're waiting for. They're living the life you keep telling yourself you'll step into someday. The deeper issue here is psychological. From childhood, we're conditioned to seek permission. Ask before you speak. Raise your hand, wait to be called on. Follow instructions. Don't cross the line until you're told it's safe. That conditioning doesn't just disappear when you grow up. It embeds itself in your nervous system. So when you're an adult, standing at the edge of your own potential, you still feel that invisible pull to wait for approval, to be chosen, to be told you're ready. But life is not a classroom, and there is no teacher at the front grading your readiness. The moment you realize that the authority you've been waiting on is already in you, everything shifts. Philosophically, this is the essence of agency. Agency means recognizing that you are the author of your own life, not a character waiting to be written into someone else's story. And yet, most people never exercise that agency. They move through life like passengers, not drivers. They wait for a signal from the universe, as if fate will just knock on the door and say, "It's your turn now." But life doesn't operate that way. The universe doesn't hand out permission slips. It hands out resistance. It throws obstacles at you to see if you'll finally claim your place without needing anyone's approval. And here's the thing about waiting for permission: it feels safe. You can't fail if you don't start. You can't be criticized if you don't put yourself out there. But the cost of that safety is your potential. Every day you wait, the gap between who you are and who you could be gets wider. Every year that passes while you hesitate is a year you can't get back. One of the most painful realizations a person can have is looking back and realizing they were capable of so much more, but they let fear disguise itself as strategy. What makes someone that MF? The person who walks into a room and shifts the energy isn't that they were handed an opportunity. It's that they stopped asking. They stopped waiting for a nod of approval and started moving like they were already chosen. And the paradox is, once you stop waiting for permission, the world starts responding to you differently. People take notice because confidence is magnetic. When you act like you belong, when you move like you don't need anyone's validation, doors open, not because you begged for them to, but because you kicked them down. But let's get practical here. What does it actually look like to stop waiting for permission? It's sending the email you've been drafting for months. It's posting the content you've been second guessing. It's making the call, taking the risk, stepping into the room where you feel unqualified. Stopping the wait doesn't require a grand gesture. It requires a shift in how you see yourself. You don't wait until you're fearless. You move while you're terrified. You don't wait until you're certain. You decide while you're uncertain. That's what separates the ones who change their lives from the ones who only imagine doing it. So if you're sitting there thinking you need more signs, more preparation, more certainty, let me tell you, you don't. You're as ready as you'll ever be, because readiness isn't a feeling, it's a decision. And the moment you decide, you change the trajectory of your life. Here's the question you have to wrestle with. How much longer are you willing to sit in the waiting room of your own life? How many more years are you willing to let pass while you keep preparing, hesitating, hoping someone else will tap you on the shoulder and tell you it's time? Because it is time, but only if you claim it. Stop waiting for permission. Start moving as if the crown is already on your head, because the truth is, it always was. Fear has been demonized for so long that most people assume its presence means they're doing something wrong. If you feel fear, you must not be ready. If you feel fear, maybe you're unqualified. If you feel fear, maybe you should stop. That's the narrative we've been fed. But that narrative is not truth. It's a trap. The presence of fear doesn't mean you're on the wrong path. It often means you're standing at the edge of something meaningful. Fear isn't a signal to retreat. It's a compass pointing directly at where growth lies. Think about it. The most ordinary moments in your life rarely provoke fear. You don't get nervous brushing your teeth, driving to the grocery store, or walking into your living room. Why? Because none of those things carry stakes. None of them stretch your identity. Fear only arises when you're stepping into territory that matters. That job interview, that first date, that public speech, that business idea. Fear is the nervous system's way of alerting you, hey, what you're about to do could change things. And yet, instead of leaning into that signal, most people treat it like a stop sign. They hit the brakes at the exact moment they should be hitting the gas. Psychologically, this makes sense. Fear is the body's evolutionary alarm system. It's designed to protect you from danger. Thousands of years ago, if you felt fear, it probably meant a predator was nearby. Your heart rate spiked, adrenaline surged, muscles tensed. Your body was priming itself for survival. But here's the disconnect. Today, the fears that paralyze us are rarely life-threatening. They're not lions in the tall grass. They're emails, conversations, decisions, risks. Yet the body doesn't know the difference. It reacts with the same intensity. That's why your chest tightens before a speech, why your palms sweat before a leap, why your voice shakes when you're about to say something that matters. The mistake isn't feeling fear, it's misinterpreting what that fear means. Philosophically, fear is a mirror. It reflects back to you the exact places where your potential lies. The things you are most afraid of are often the things that would most expand your life if you faced them. The door you're afraid to knock on, the truth you're afraid to speak, the leap you're afraid to take. Behind each of those is a version of you that is bigger, freer, more alive. That's why fear is so persistent. It doesn't go away because it isn't meant to. It's not your enemy, it's your teacher. It's a force that says, right here, push through me and you'll evolve. But here's the catch, fear never fully disappears. The people you admire, the ones who seem fearless, aren't actually without fear. They've just learned how to interpret it differently. Where most people feel fear and freeze, they feel fear and focus. They treat it like fuel. That adrenaline that floods your system when you're terrified, that's energy. That's your body handing you jet fuel ready to be burned. And the moment you stop seeing fear as a problem and start seeing it as power, you unlock momentum. Let me be clear, courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is the decision to move with fear still in the room. If you wait until the fear is gone, you'll never take the step. Fear fades only after action. You act, you survive, and your nervous system recalibrates, but the sequence matters. Action first, confidence second, not the other way around. Too many people are waiting for confidence before they act, when in reality, confidence is just fear that's been walked through. Look at any pivotal moment in history, any invention, any revolution, any breakthrough. You think those people weren't afraid? Of course they were. Fear doesn't disqualify you. It confirms you're alive at the frontier of possibility. The question isn't whether you feel fear. The question is whether you'll use it. And using it doesn't mean pretending it's not there. It means reframing it. It means when your chest tightens before you step on stage, you don't say, "I'm terrified." You say, "My body is giving me energy." When your hands shake before a big decision, you don't say, "I can't handle this." You say, "This means I'm exactly where I need to be." That reframe alone can change everything. Fear is like fire. Left unchecked, it will burn you down. But harnessed, it will cook your food, light your path, and keep you alive. Most people let fear consume them. The few who rise, who become undeniable, learn to control it, to channel it, to let it propel them instead of paralyze them. So here's the choice. You can keep treating fear as the enemy, retreat every time it shows up, and shrink your life to fit the boundaries of your comfort zone. Or you can recognize it for what it is, an invitation. A signal that you're exactly where growth happens. The question isn't whether you feel fear. The question is whether you'll burn it as fuel or let it burn you. At some point, you have to make a decision about who you are. Not the version of you that's been molded by other people's expectations. Not the watered-down version you present because it's easier, safer, less disruptive. I'm talking about the unfiltered version. The identity you know is there but keep negotiating with. Because let's be honest, most people spend their entire lives in negotiation with themselves. They bargain away their authenticity in exchange for belonging, for approval, for safety. And the irony is, in trying to fit in everywhere, they end up belonging nowhere. The world is relentless in trying to shape you. From the time you're a child, you're given labels, roles, and rules about who you should be. Be polite, be agreeable, don't be too loud, don't be too ambitious. And those messages don't just disappear as you grow older. They deepen. They become the inner critic that says, "Don't stand out too much, don't make people uncomfortable, don't risk being rejected." And so you edit yourself. You shave off the edges, you mute your volume, and little by little, you betray your own identity. But here's the truth. Nobody respects someone who constantly dilutes themselves. People may tolerate you, they may even like you, but they won't follow you, they won't be moved by you, they won't remember you. Influence doesn't come from blending in. It comes from standing out, from having the audacity to be undeniable. When you own your identity relentlessly, without apology, you stop asking the world for space, and instead create space by your very presence. Psychologically, the fear of authenticity is rooted in rejection. Humans are wired for belonging. It's a survival instinct. Thousands of years ago, to be cast out of the tribe meant death. So even today, your nervous system treats social rejection as a kind of threat. That's why your heart races when you speak an unpopular truth. Why you hesitate before showing your real self. It's your biology trying to protect you. But here's the thing, in a modern world, the danger isn't being cast out of the tribe, it's being cast out of yourself. When you live a life built on constant self-editing, you end up with success that doesn't feel like success, relationships that don't feel like love, achievements that don't feel like fulfillment, because deep down, you know the version of you being rewarded isn't the real one. Philosophically, owning your identity is an act of defiance. It's a refusal to let external forces define you. It's saying, I will no longer live as a reaction to the expectations of others. I will live as an expression of who I actually am. And yes, that comes with cost. People will question you, they will resist you, they will doubt you, some will walk away. But that resistance isn't a sign that you're doing something wrong. It's proof that you're finally showing up. The moment you stop negotiating with your identity, you start disrupting the comfort zones of others. And if you never make anyone uncomfortable, it probably means you're not being real enough. Let's talk about the practical side. Owning your identity relentlessly doesn't mean being rigid or arrogant. It means alignment. It means the words you speak, the actions you take, and the values you claim all line up. It means no more disguises, no more masks, no more adjusting who you are depending on the room you're in. You're not one person with your friends, another with your boss, another with your family. You're one coherent, consistent presence, and that coherence builds power. People may not always agree with you, but they'll respect you because you're solid, you're rooted, you're not swayed by every breeze of opinion. Think about it. The people who shift culture, the ones who leave legacies, are rarely the ones who played it safe. They're the ones who leaned fully into their identity, even when it made others uncomfortable. Artists, leaders, innovators, they all had critics, they all had doubters, but they also had conviction, and conviction is contagious. When you own yourself fully, you give permission for others to do the same. Your authenticity becomes an invitation for theirs. But make no mistake, this isn't easy. It requires courage to risk being misunderstood, courage to let go of the approval you've been addicted to, courage to accept that not everyone will celebrate who you are. Yet what's the alternative? To live a lifetime as a watered-down version of yourself, to reach the end of your life and realize the world never got to meet the real you because you were too busy trying to be palatable. That's the real tragedy. So the question isn't whether owning your identity will cost you. It will. The real question is whether you're willing to pay the price for authenticity or whether you'll pay the far greater price of regret. Stop negotiating with who you are. Stop bargaining with your own reflection. The world doesn't need another echo. It needs your voice, raw and unfiltered. Own it relentlessly. Because if you don't, you risk becoming a stranger in your own life. We live in a culture obsessed with external validation. Everyone's waiting for recognition, waiting to be discovered, waiting for the world to finally acknowledge their worth. But if there's one truth you have to swallow, it's this. The world doesn't reward what you deserve. It rewards what you demand from yourself. Too many people spend their energy blaming circumstances, blaming society, blaming luck, as if the reason they're not where they want to be is because the world hasn't given them enough. But being that MF isn't about waiting for the world to meet your expectations. It's about raising your own so high that the world has no choice but to adjust. The problem with demanding more from the world is that it keeps you powerless. It makes you a beggar, standing outside the gates of opportunity, waiting for someone else to open them. You start thinking, if only they gave me a chance, if only life was fairer, if only someone saw me. And in that mindset, you hand away your agency. You put your destiny in the hands of people who are too busy with their own battles to care about yours. That's not power, that's dependency. Demanding more from yourself is the opposite. It's radical ownership. It's looking in the mirror and saying, if I don't like where I am, then it's on me to raise the standard. It's asking yourself not what the world owes you, but what you owe yourself. And that shift alone separates people who rise from people who remain stuck. Because the truth is, the world responds to people who operate at a higher frequency than it does to those who complain about unfairness. It's not about being deserving, it's about being undeniable. Psychologically, this is about breaking free from entitlement. Entitlement is the belief that because you've suffered, because you've worked hard, because you've been patient, the world now owes you something. But the universe doesn't keep score that way. You don't get points for struggle, you get results for action. The danger of entitlement is that it tricks you into thinking effort alone is enough. But if your effort isn't directed, if your standards aren't elevated, then all you're doing is running in circles and calling it progress. Philosophically, demanding more from yourself is the path of self-mastery. It's the acknowledgement that the external world will never bend consistently in your favor, so the only thing you can truly control is the caliber of your own discipline, your own vision, your own relentless pursuit. Marcus Aurelius said it best, waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one. Stop debating with yourself about when the right time will come. Stop demanding that life be easier. Demand that you become stronger, sharper, more resilient. That's where the power is. Let me put it plainly. You cannot beg your way into greatness. You cannot trip the world into giving you what you want. The world doesn't respond to pity. It responds to power. And power comes from the standards you set for yourself. When you hold yourself to a level of excellence that most people wouldn't even attempt, when you show up with consistency and fire even when no one's watching, when you refuse to negotiate with your own excuses, that's when doors start opening. Not because you begged for them, but because you built so much momentum that ignoring you becomes impossible. Think about the figures who truly shift culture, who redefine industries, who alter the course of history. They weren't sitting around waiting for the world to get easier. They were too busy demanding more from themselves than anyone else dared to. They outworked, outthought, and outlasted. They weren't concerned with fairness. They were concerned with impact. And when you operate at that level, the world eventually bends, not because it's generous, but because it has no other option. But here's the part nobody likes to hear. Demanding more from yourself means holding yourself accountable in the moments when no one else is looking. It means calling yourself out when you're slacking. It means not lowering the bar just because you're tired or frustrated or tempted to quit. It means refusing to let your own excuses become the story you live in. That level of self-demand isn't comfortable, but comfort is overrated. Comfort breeds mediocrity. Discomfort breeds greatness. So ask yourself, what standards have you been settling for? Where have you been waiting for the world to change when it's really you who needs to? Where have you been begging for recognition instead of building results? These are the questions that cut deep. The ones most people avoid because they expose the gap between who you are and who you could be. But that gap isn't closed by blame or luck or entitlement. It's closed by raising your own damn standards and refusing to accept anything less. And that's what it means to be that MF. It's not about ego. It's not about arrogance. It's about being the kind of person who demands so much of themselves that the world can't help but take notice. So stop begging, stop waiting, stop demanding the world change for you. Demand that you change for the life you claim you want, because the world doesn't give you what you ask for, it gives you what you demand of yourself.